Hello, my friends. I would like to introduce you to a concept that can turn your recovery around 180 degrees if this is the right time and it's what you need. I was visited by a family member last week, and it was kind of like talking to every pattern I'd ever rewired in my entire journey in one person. And it reminded me of this pathway that I used to have and that I see in so many of my clients of feeling like our limbic systems in general, our symptoms, our core beliefs, our circumstances, our whatever your particular obstacles are in your neuroplastic journey are bigger than we are. Because in the moment, it feels that way. Like in the moment when you're really activated and you have a sensation that you feel like is bigger than you, or you have a belief or, a pop, like oh, this is too hard. I can't do it. I'm too broken. I'm actually in danger. This isn't limbic. I've never overcome this before. How could I overcome it now? These things feel bigger than we are in that moment. But the reality, and even it goes to physical things, like I've seen people where they seem to think that like the bacteria in their gut or, whatever chronic infection they're dealing with, like that bacteria or virus is like bigger than they are and more powerful than they are. And they're like, but there's a real thing happening. I have this real thing inside of me. That's why I can't rewire. That's why I can't rise above this, because it's so real. But then we're essentially making that thing, no matter what it is, whether it's a bacteria or a thought or a feeling or a belief or a sensation, bigger than we are, more powerful than we are. And this is part of where you don't want to believe the way you feel in recovery, because it's not objectively true. And this is one of those beliefs that's kind of like a magic portal. If you've ever seen Doctor Strange, it's kind of like you open up a magic portal into another universe when you choose to step into this belief because of the way it works. And I'll explain. So I picked this up at the first time at the very beginning of my recovery when I was incrementally training. And I remember thinking, okay, my infinite human spirit is more powerful than this walnut-sized thing in my brain. Like your limbic system's about the size of a walnut that has a shell on. It's not that big. Your amygdala is about the size of an almond with the shell off. Like these parts of the brain that are creating these experiences are physically very small inside of our brain compared to the rest of your body. And just the fact you are not your brain. You are essentially, again, the part of you that's invisible, your spirit. The part of you that's you from the time you're born to the time you die, even though, every cell in your body changes multiple times over during that time. And somehow you're not a different person because you're not made up of matter. What you are in your essence is a spiritual or non-physical thing. So your identity. So identifying with that you are bigger than this experience is really helpful, but also you're bigger than whatever the thing is that's in front of you. Whether it's a symptom, whether it's a belief or a pattern you haven't overcome yet, whether it's a set of circumstances, because a lot of us are dealing with some pretty gnarly circumstances in recovery, you are already bigger than it. And this is where it's kind of like the portal, is that when you assert that you're already bigger, and maybe neurologically in that moment, you're not yet. You haven't yet risen above this thing. But when you say, I am bigger than this experience and I am bigger than this thing in front of me, this perceived obstacle, you start to realize that you have the capacity to rise above it, that the potential for that lies within you. Another thing that I thought about this a lot was people like Gloria Estefan and Tina Turner and Nelson Mandela and so many people from history that we know that overcame crazy circumstances, and then things that were just really big or ongoing over time. And at the end of their lives, like that thing actually is part of what made them so amazing. Like it wasn't bigger than them. They overcame it, and it gave them the boost, the challenge of that, the fact that it forced them to make the decision of whether they were going to grow bigger than it or not, put them in a position where they became larger than life in a certain way, and they were able to fulfill their potential. And this is where this is a journey of growth. So it's a matter of when you step into that belief that you're already bigger than it, it gives you the necessary oomph to look for the potential, look for the way out, instead of just focusing on the problem and feeling trapped by it or feeling, kind of suffocated and overwhelmed by it. So you are bigger. This was something else I did in when I was going through like a 2-year perfect storm post-recovery, going through divorce, living in a shed in my backyard, no idea how I was going to do anything. I just knew I was going to get myself out of there, but I had no plan. I didn't know how I was going to do it. I didn't have nothing at all. I just had this sense. I remember walking home one night and going into the backyard and getting into my shed and being like, there is a version of me where this is all in the past. And all of this has been resolved because that's what I've chosen. I've chosen to find that path and create it. So like, if I look at my life, I'm already bigger than this. Like there's a version of me that's already overcome this. And it's just like a nothing in the past. It's totally forgotten, which I'm there now. And I've been there for a while, but that's something that is really helpful in moments when you feel like whatever's in front of you is really big, because it really does feel that way. And I want to validate again, like the way these things feel it feels so real. There were so many times for me that certain core beliefs, certain old patterns, certain, developmental, like areas where I was developmentally stunted with the CP, chronic or the complex PTSD, where it just, I could not for the life of me imagine a life where this thing whatever the thing was, didn't rule my entire existence. And I've overcome every single one of them. But this is having that sense. And when you face something, reminding yourself, I'm already bigger than this. There's a version of me that's already overcome this. Let me look for that person. Another tactic I used in certain moments was really trying to dig deep and use my tools and think, what would the wisest version of me, like there is a part of me that already knows how to do this. There is a wise, divine version of me, element in me that already knows the way out. What would that version of me do in this moment? And let me be her. It's kind of like the what would Jesus do, but it's more like what would my higher self do, because you actually have to make that choice and be that person in that moment. As wonderful as Jesus is, he didn't, I don't think he rewired his brain, so not the most relevant question. But that's something to remind, and that's, you use your tools. If you're stuck in that loop and you're looking at the loop and you're looking at the problem, realize that you can just as easily, in a certain sense, just as simply, not as easily, but just as simply use your tools to create a new positive pathway and interrupt that and say, no, I'm creating a replacement. I'm rewiring my way out of this. I'm choosing a new pathway, and I'm creating a new pathway and a new way of being that makes this old one obsolete. You have that choice in that moment to rise above it. So take this to heart. Notice where in your life you're allowing exterior circumstances or your own limbic system to put you in that position of victimhood. Because that was what I was talking to this family member, realizing like almost everything that came out of his mouth was an act of victimhood. Oh, but that's this, it's so much bigger. Oh, but this, and oh, but that, and this person, and I'm not allowed, and I can't do this. And it was like, wow, you're really at the mercy of like everything you've ever heard from everybody, aren't you? And that used to be me. That was my father. That was me. So change is possible. Remember that.